and basketball analysis with over 70 years combined experience.
The Bob Ryan and Jeff Goodman podcast is brought to you by Prizepicks.
Hey, look who's here. The band's back together. Larry, Curly, and Mo. Yes, that is Jeff Goodman, who has been MIA. Brought to you by Prizepicks, the exclusive daily fantasy partner of CLNS Media Network. Pick more, pick less with Prizepicks. Jeffrey, how are you?
Good. I'm good. I wish I could say I'm back home. I'm not home because we still our house in Charleston's being renovated. But I am in Charleston at another rental, another place. I can't wait to get to a house. Like, honestly, this has been a long journey. And it's been a long journey the last month of covering the NCAA tournament, which started slow. But as Bob knows, because he was in San Antonio, man, did it finish with a bang. I mean, you had three of the best games, Gary. Three of the best games I've ever seen at one Final Four. It was absolutely incredible. The comebacks, the storylines, obviously Duke and Cooper Flagg bowing out, blowing a 14-point lead late in the game to Houston, and then Houston having the tables turned on them and blowing a late lead to lose the national title to the Florida Gators. So it was fun out there in San Antonio.
Well, we will get, so let's start with that. I mean, we'll get to the Celtics and we'll talk about, coaching change with Mike Malone, and we'll get to that. But since that's, fresh on everybody's mind, and I'll start with Bob and then I'll go back to Jeff. I think, Bob, this is exactly what the college game needed. Now, Jeff, while you were all busy working and Bob and I were just sitting back pontificating, Bob was basically telling people the games are still great. We understand you have the transfer portal, which makes your life hell. But, okay, so players change teams now all the time. But that doesn't take away from you still loving the game. And, Bob, your point is well taken because, I mean, this has been the best Final Four in how long?
A fan in this era has to make an adjustment or not make an adjustment to the changing methodology, the changing way that the game has evolved. The amateurism, the game that we knew is gone. The concept of a scholarship as a worthy compensation for playing, period, is gone. The idea that the coaches are paid a reasonable salary and not astronomical salaries is gone. The idea that that's all gone. And we're now in this constant state of flux. The idea of a 4-year player is obsolete of any consequence. It's going to be very extraordinary. I'm not going to see it. Transfers. Guys ignoring recruiting freshmen, just relying on transfers. I mean, it's all crazy. Some people just can't handle it, period. They just sworn off. They said, I don't want any part of it. Not what I knew, blah, blah, blah. For me, I'm trying to hang on. The product, when you get there, like as you just said, when we got to the Final Four, we had a historic Final Four. First of all, we had 4 number ones, so a second time in seeding, which began in '85, as we know it, and we were rewarded with competitive games, unusual endings, twice, very unusual endings twice, involving the same team, Houston, one pro and one con, the ousting of a favored team in Houston, Duke. On and on. It was compelling, no question. And people are lamenting the idea that Cinderella did not go to the ball this year. There were no significant upsets that launched anybody into the Sweet 16 this year, but the result was we had a very competitive Final Four. People, and I understand, I'm sympathetic with people who just can't deal with the change. They just can't handle it. I'm going to confess to being an enabler. I still like the product. I'm not happy. Believe me, I'm not happy. I think the NCAA has screwed up monumentally, going back to the Ed O'Bannon situation and this court case, and your refusal to make an adjustment that needed to be made, and now they're stuck with what we have. I'm upset with that, but I still like the product. And I confess to being an enabler, yes.
Bob, did you, when the game ended, and obviously it was crazy, the ending. Houston turned the ball over the last 4 possessions. They didn't get a shot off at the very end. And it went so quickly. that you're like, look up and you're like, whoa, Florida just won this thing. I talked to Walter Clayton Jr. right after the game, and he said that to me. He's like, I didn't know, that the game was over at that point. I thought there's still 5-6 seconds left on the clock.
Really?
At the end. Yeah. So it went quick, but for me, it was watching those Florida kids, and I've gotten a chance to know Walter Clayton Jr. and Elijah Martin pretty well over the last few years. And then after they cut down the nets, I felt really bad for Kelvin Sampson. And I wonder how you felt, because he's a guy who was run out of college years ago for making too many phone calls. He had to go to the NBA. Greg Popovich, who kind of ironic, couldn't be there, is in San Antonio. Pop's obviously has some health issues right now, but he's the one who kind of saved Kelvin Sampson's career and let him sit behind the bench in San Antonio after he got fired in Indiana for making those illegal phone calls. Takes over a Houston program when he realizes that he's not going to be an NBA head coach. Says the only way I'm taking it over is if I can bring my son, who was fired, and my daughter, who hated her job, with me. They build this thing, and at 69 years old, he is literally like one basket away from winning the whole thing. How did you feel about him when that game ended, Bob? Did you feel I've gotten a chance to know him and really, really like Kelvin.
When the tournament Final Four began, I said the following: all four could win. The one with the least chance is Auburn, but only by a smidgen. But I thought they were the least likely to win. I could live with any of the four. I was pulling for Duke because I happen to like the composition of this team. But in the championship game, though I have nothing against Florida, I was not anti-Florida in any way. I was pulling for Kelvin for the reasons that you suggest. 69 years old, a Hall of Fame bound career, 799 wins, going for 800 in the championship game was just, can't make that what up. And I was pulling for him. And so I feel bad for him. And I do believe that he deserves a pardon from all of us for his horrible sin that would be a joke and laugh today. Impermissible phone calls. Yes, he made them at Indiana and messed up that job and got himself a show cause. But in the end, for his career, wound up going to the NBA was beneficial in a sense. And then he comes back and does what he did at Houston. Yes, I was feeling bad for him. I can't imagine it's going to happen again. That's as close, I think, as he's going to get. Just out of logic, this was the group.
Probably got 2 years left. He's probably got 2 years left. Then he's going to give the job, Gary, to his son, Kellen, who, again, I said, joined him with the staff. But, cool story, 39-year-old Todd Golden, just a few years removed from being the head coach of San Francisco, gets hired at Florida, went through some Title IX accusations earlier this year that some people condemned him right away. These accusations, unfortunately, these days, people deem you guilty immediately.
Can you explain what that is, Jeff, just quickly?
What's that?
Can you explain what that is just quickly?
Yeah, he was accused by a woman of basically, stalking online. All the charges were dropped. They went through the Title IX investigation, but a lot of people, again, they come to these conclusions right away when something comes out, and a lot of people basically were guilty. Great piece of. It was actually the student newspaper of Florida that put out this Title IX investigation, and they put out more than they probably should have. You could put out just the Title IX, that's fine. Right. That was accurate. But they did a little editorializing that they probably shouldn't have at that time. It took months to actually finalize. Everything was dropped. It was closed. I think it was about January. All this came out right before the season started, or right as the season started. So Todd Golden and that team went through a lot as well over the course of the year. But the cool part, too, of this Florida team, guys, is their starting perimeter trio all came from the mid-major ranks. Walter Clayton Jr. came from Iona. Elijah Martin came from FAU. And Will Richard came from Belmont. So it just goes to show you. And part of it was at that time, you were talking COVID when the evaluations were going on. So there were a lot of missed evaluations.
Oh, there's no doubt.
Back then.
No, there's no doubt about that.
You know, that's a story. That story wasn't widely known. I didn't know anything, not a word about it until the New York Times slash Athletic ran a piece last week. You know, sometime during the week prior to the Final Four. I didn't know once they got to the Final Four. So this isn't getting widespread national attention. Most of us were educated last week about this thing. No, certainly I'm not going to make a judgment about it. How can we make a judgment about it? It's unfortunate though that this is it's out there. And for some people, they're going to always hold it against them. I don't know. I have no idea. That's unfortunate that that's part of the story for Todd Golden.
Well, because of the transfer portal, and let's look on the bright side. What I see here is I see, three teams that thought they belonged there. We all felt, Bob, that Duke and Cooper Flagg, they were going to win it. But these other two teams, I mean, Florida and Houston, they showed a lot of poise. They weren't afraid at all.
No, Florida in the last three games of the tournament, they came from 10 down against Texas Tech, 8 down against Auburn, and 12 down against Houston in the second half to win the game. I don't know if any team has ever been able to claim such a thing in the history of the tournament. And they were poised. Of course, there's veterans there, and then Houston, of course, had veterans including Lawrence. Of course, with his 6 years. But it was high. It was high level. It wasn't always pretty. Like one reason being Houston is such a defensively oriented team, and the games are going to be a little, grinding. Let's put it that the way to be polite, and we didn't have any, but I thought, by the way, just the Florida in the championship game, they took 16 fewer shots and won the game, which is, don't you think that's a no one dwelled on that. I got picked up on that right away. The result of the reason for that was that there was a turnover discrepancy and an offensive rebound discrepancy that gave, in favor of Florida both ways, that gave them the additional shots. And they had 16 more shots in Florida, and Florida still won the game.
Yeah, Houston always has a ton of offensive rebounds. That's what they do. They go up, they tip the ball back a lot of times. Yeah. What they didn't get a lot of second chance points out of those offensive rebounds.
Right.
No, they didn't.
And that was part of the issue. But what did you think of the ending of the Duke game? Because obviously Duke had this thing on hand. I don't think anybody for a second thought Houston had a chance to win this game until the final minute or so. They come back and they pull the. Do you put the blame, Bob, more on Duke and Shire, on the players? They took the air out of the ball a little bit. Their offense was so good for 30 minutes. The last 10 minutes, they couldn't score. Was that on Shire, or was that more, to me, I think it was a combination of Houston doing what they do and Duke. It's never on one team fully. It's always got to be the combination.
Number one, I was unaware that they had only scored one field goal in the last 10 minutes, so we were informed of such after the game. What didn't dawn on me. I knew the lead was dwindling, but I still didn't put see that happening. Number one, Houston's identity was defense, and ultimately they won it with ultra defense because, one thing about stopping people from scoring, another thing for people preventing them from even getting a chance to score by twice stopping the inbounds pass, which is really, now I would have to say that in retrospect, I would think, Jay, when you looked at how Florida handled their end of the game with their formation was much better. Just everything, the whole thing with Duke was they were compacted. What they were trying to do, they didn't have the floor very wide open. It was compacted, but that's what Houston does. That's what they're great at is defense, and certainly in the end, that was the difference. But did Duke blow it? I wrote and I said that Houston never quit, and Duke just couldn't close the deal. So both things are true. I really believe both things are true.
We'll get back to the fellas in just a minute. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in award winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. Now, springtime is here. Baseball season is upon us. Now, don't miss your chance to add your favorite players from the diamond to your Prize Picks lineup. Whether it's strikeouts, RBIs, or first inning runs, take your pick of more or less for your shot to win up 1,000 times your cash. Today on Prize Picks, you can mix and match player projections from different sports. Combine your favorite baseball players with players from basketball, hockey, esports, and much, much more. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. It's the push for the playoffs here, folks. For the NBA and the NHL, it's all heating up. And Prize Picks is the best place to cash in on your favorite sports. Well, you got Aaron Judge. Is he going to have more than 1 home run? Or Tyler Glasnow for more than 4 hits allowed? Ohtani, more than 1 home run, hit, or allowed? Take your pick with Prize Picks. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. Jeff, what does this do for Cooper Flagg's reputation?
I don't think it'll matter. I don't think anybody will even remember 20 years from now what Cooper Flagg did in the NCAA tournament. He got him the Final Four, though, and that was huge for John Shire. Year 3, obviously they'll have to win a title at some point to validate Shire, but Cooper Flagg had one of the unbelievable freshman years I've ever seen. Again, he's one of those guys that just does absolutely everything on the court. They just didn't run their offense. It was weird because they were moving the ball so well for 30 minutes. And then the ball just stuck. They started to go one-on-one. They started to kind of milk it a little bit and see if they could take the air out of the ball, I think, and it just backfired.
Yeah,
Bob, your thoughts on Cooper?
That it'll be a footnote. Jeff's 100% correct. It'll be a footnote when he's making his acceptance speech in Springfield in 20 years. It'll be a footnote. And he is an extraordinary talent, and he'll be fine. And he missed a shot he can make, I bet, 7 out of 10 times. He missed it. That's the way life is sometimes. He wasn't fated this year to be the ultimate hero. So no, I'm not worried about Cooper Flagg, and I know the NBA guys are not going to hold that.
Oh yeah, no, he's going
at all. No need to.
Well, number 33 in Boston, he lost. He didn't win the NCAA championship either.
He didn't play that great in that game. Although I maintain to my grave that he was hurt early in that game. He hurt that left hand. That if you watch the 13 rebounds that he got in that game against Michigan State, a disproportionate number were one-hand scoops, and he's not a one-hand scoop guy. He's a two-hand orthodox rebounder. His left hand was not as useful to him. It had been injured earlier in the tournament, and I do think he hurt it early. I remember him catching a pass and wincing, and I think he was hurt in that game. Now, that's not why they lost. The better team won. Michigan State. If they played 10 times, still win 7, right? I think, against Indiana State. So, but Larry didn't have a great game. He was 7 for 21. After a semifinal game, one of the great performances, this side of Bill Walton in the history of the tournament, he was 16 for 19 against DePaul in the semifinal game.
Hey, Gary, before we move to other NBA topics, which I know we're going to, I'm going to give you a few numbers, portal numbers, reporting-wise on. I polled about 20 coaches today about what the numbers are right now for 4 different categories, okay? The highest end player, which is a top 10 player right now in college basketball coming back, like a kid named JT Toppin came back to Texas Tech. He didn't put his name in the portal, but you have leverage anyway. Then there's the second tier, which is the all-league player, okay? So the all-league player for whatever school, and we're projecting here. Then the third one is a starter. How much is a starter going to be compensated for a Power 4 team this year? And then the last one will be a bench player. All right. I'm going to have you guys guess the range.
Yeah,
I'll give you, again, the highest end guy is a top 5-10 player in college basketball this year. What do you think they will make in NIL compensation this year? I'm going to give a range. It'll be a range again.
I have no clue, Jeff. I'll let Bob go. I really don't have any
Well, I'm
idea.
going to go on the basis of, based on AJ Disbanza at BYU, estimated between 5 and 7 mil. I'll say 5 mil.
Yeah, his is a little different. Okay. Just because
3 mil.
it'll be about 2.5 to 4.
Okay,
that'll be the average for the highest end player. I'll run down the other ones. The all league player, $1.5 to $2.5 million this year. That's about what they'll make. A starter at the Power 4 level will be somewhere between $500,000 at the low end and $1.5 million. Just so you know, by the way, the 30th pick in the NBA draft this year will get about $2 million.
I was going to say, why go pro?
You won't unless you're a lottery pick.
Right.
Unless you're a lottery pick or a guaranteed first round pick, you should not go pro.
Right.
And then a bench player. How about this? A bench player on a Power 5 team, Power 4 team, will make somewhere in between $200,000 and $750,000.
Listen, it's a capitalistic society. The schools make it, so they should make it. Now, I just have a hard time wrapping my head around a six-man.
They weren't making $1. I mean, 4 years ago, they weren't making $1. And this is
I know.
Now, again, part of the reason these numbers are going to be higher than most because rev share is going to go in soon. And thus, all the schools are trying to pay out as much money to these kids as they can before the rev share comes in. And then it's kind of supposed to be capped. So,
go ahead, Bob.
Thing I learned when Connie Hawkins, we go back 60 plus years now, was at Iowa, coming out of boys' high school in New York, a touted player. He wound up getting on a probation. He never played a second of college basketball. Here's his 2 transgressions with Iowa. 1, he played in a game with the varsity, a pickup. 2, this is my favorite. He stayed overnight in a dorm in Iowa, and they didn't charge him any money. Had he paid $8 a night, he would have been clear. This is why he was prevented from playing college basketball in 1961. This is where we've come. And then, of course, you know the famous bagel and cheese thing, that you can get a bagel, not with the cheese.
You can do it now. You can get the cream cheese now.
You can get the store.
People think they're going to think I'm making this up. No.
Oh yeah, I know. It's great. No.
Well, again, Bruce Pearl, we talked about Kelvin Sampson getting fired. Bruce Pearl got fired because he had a recruit named Aaron Kraft who went in to play at Ohio State to a barbecue. That was not permitted. So he literally got fired because they lied about it, but it was illegal.
Wasn't there a deal where assistant couldn't get a kid back, a ride back to the dorm after practice because that wasn't something available to the average student? Wasn't that one of the differentiations that they were differentiating with the privileges that are given the athletes versus the average student? That was some of the quote unquote violations that this is where we're coming from. The NCAA, they deserve what they get in that sense, because they were so just ludicrous in their ridiculous. There was famous the length of the rule book, right? Was some X hundred pages. It was insane. All the way back to the Walter Byers era.
Before we get to the Celtics, how do we feel about Geno Auriemma, Jeff?
I'm happy as hell for him. And I was never a huge fan, I'm not going to lie. Years ago, came across as super arrogant. I just wasn't sure. And part of it was he and Jim Calhoun didn't get along great. So I heard more stories aside from Jim Calhoun. I got a great story. So we're at the ESPN. Every year at ESPN, they have like a preseason meeting for all the college basketball people. And Calhoun was on board at that time for all the talent producers, everybody. So I'm in the room sitting at the same table as Calhoun. And I knew the background. Most people in the room had no idea that Calhoun and Geno did not get along. I was very well aware. So they have a surprise speaker every year. And don't you know it? Who walks in? Geno is the surprise speaker. So immediately I looked back because I knew, Jim was not going to be happy with this thing. Well, Jim pretended to go to the bathroom. He never came back.
Never came back.
It was classic.
Well, I can tell you, San Jose in 1995, the year they won their first championship under Geno, right? That we were on watching the women's game in a media room, and Jim Calhoun peeked in, and when he saw it was the UConn women, he turned around and walked out.
Yeah.
So, no, this happened. So, yeah, I understand. Lee Michael wrote a book that you would. It's all in there with Geno, and it's great. But now, so
it had been a decade.
I think
it had been almost a decade. I think this was it. Like a lot of people thought it had passed them by.
Right.
Obviously, the team had injuries lately, but Don Staley's running the sport at South Carolina. 9 years, and how about this? 30 years in between the first title and this one. Incredible. I like Geno a ton now. In fact, I was at a media day, Big East Media Day a couple of years ago, and I couldn't leave his table because I just found him so smart and thoughtful in every one of his answers. And no matter who asks him the questions, how sometimes you can see these coaches that have no respect for like student reporters.
Right.
This guy was the opposite.
Right.
Almost 70 years old at the time, and could have brushed off some of these questions and thinks about them before he answers and gives great, thoughtful, articulate. Like, it was just, I have a lot of respect for him, how he handles the media, especially the younger student media.
Well, good for him.
What he's done for women's basketball can't even be accurately measured. As great as Pat Summitt was, and she was wonderful, and they had their relationship that had up and down and all that stuff. But he's the most influential person in the history of women's basketball, and what he's done at UConn. Remember, there was no history. He created it all. There was nothing special about UConn basketball in the world of women's basketball when he took over that job. Nothing. He made it all happen.
Same thing with Calhoun, right? I mean, I remember UConn in the Yankee Conference.
UConn was the doormat. When the Big East was formed in '79, UConn was the original doormat.
Right.
The first several years. And Dean Rowe, God love him, we all love Dean Rowe, but they were doormats. And Calhoun comes in from Northeastern, and by the third year, they win the NIT, and they're off and running. From that point on, they're a factor, and with those championships, it's absolutely. So the two of them with UConn. I mean, I remember, UConn back in the '50s, they dominated the Yankee Conference. 6 teams, they got into the tournament all the time.
Right.
That was fine. And they had nice teams when I was at school in the '60s. The Yankee Conference was still in existence at that point, but then they fell off. And they fell off until Jim Calhoun resurrected them.
All right, we move on to the pros now. With the Celtics, as we speak tonight, they're resting their top 6 guys, against Orlando, which is, hey, whatever. Bob, you want to talk about their road record, which I think that is, when you take a look at this team, and Jeff, while you were away, Bob and I, one time Bob talked about point differential, how this Celtic team was winning by like 20, 30 points. But, winning on the road in professional sports now has almost become a novelty. Like, we've let so many pro teams off the hook. Well, it's a road game. They didn't feel like playing. Not with the Celtic team, Bob.
The victory in New York gave them a 33-8 road record, which breaks their record. They were twice in the 70s. They went 32-9, which I thought was remarkable. That was the Cowens, Havlicek, JoJo White era.
Right.
They went 32 and Silas. They went 32-9 twice, and now they're 33-8. You can't overpraise it. It speaks to something. It speaks to their how good they really are. And it's something that you have to remember when you get to the playoffs. They're not going to be worried about not having a home court against Cleveland. And if they get by Cleveland not having a home court against OKC, not going to worry about it. They're going to be fine. They'll be fine. It's a great testament to them. for sure. Now, meanwhile, with regard to this game against Orlando, seriously now, Adam Silver can't be happy. This is taking the load management and resting to the extreme. I mean, I was unable to follow this game because of my travels today until I found out they were losing big, and I looked at the box score and noted that there wasn't a starter in the game, and on playing in the game. And I'm sorry, but I'm sure that doesn't make Adam Silver very happy. So you just tell me why completely dismiss this Orlando game, as having any meaning to who they are and what they're going to be at all. So that's that.
Are we worried about Jaylen Brown's knee, guys, at all here?
Have to be. It's somewhere in the middle. They're playing him cautiously. He's being cautious. He says it hurts. He's been candid about it. It hurts. He's trying to deal with the pain. Why is he
playing? I mean, I think I know why he's playing, because I think if he plays 65 games,
you buy into the 65 game thing for him.
Why else is he playing? Why else would you play him? What's the point?
Right.
You rest him. So yes, and I think he has to play the last 2 games. Is that right? Now.
Yeah, so the 65 games to be considered for postseason awards.
Right. I mean, if I'm Joe Mazzulla, fine. You want to do that? Throw him in for like 2 minutes. Go jump in there for 2 minutes. But I'm not going to.
Now we know they're going to have time off. When the playoffs start.
Right.
Fine. If they think it's going to be we don't know the full story. Yeah, I'm concerned. I mean, I want them to be healthy. I continue to insist. I would rather play 7 road games in the playoffs against a team than not be healthy. I'm sorry, especially this team.
Right.
So, you want to be healthy. And not every team has some people that are indispensable to them.
Well, I mean, guys, Bob, we saw it during the regular season. They need Jaylen. They need to be 100% to beat Cleveland.
Yeah, I think so.
Hey, guys, they could get Orlando, potentially.
Oh, yeah. No, they probably will get Orlando in the opening round, right?
Yeah. I think they match up pretty well, but up front with Wagner and Paolo Banchero. And they beat them earlier in the season, fair and square, as I recall, and before they got hurt, and particularly Banchero.
I don't think they can beat them. I don't think Orlando can beat them, but yeah, Paolo's.
They could win a game, though, Jeff. They could certainly not get swept, for sure, I think. They could win a game down there, game 3, traditional. They could win game 3 down there.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't think that'd be a monumental upset. That'd be a catastrophic. That'd be one of the worst surprises in Celtic history, really, if they were to lose the first round this year, no matter who they play. Yeah, there's no question. So I'm not too worried about that. But in the long run, you want Brown healthy. We have to trust that Joe knows what he's doing, and the doctors know what they're doing.
I mean, like if you have to play, I agree with Jeff. I mean, he has, to me, the way Cleveland played, and I know when Cleveland won that game towards the end of the season, Celtics blew the lead. Cleveland came on, a big push in the fourth quarter. They're not backing down. So you got to have Porzingis, you got to have Brown, you got to be healthy to beat Cleveland. I think you got to be healthy. I mean, if Brown's not playing because he's hurt against Cleveland,
I want to have. No, I have full respect for Cleveland. They're very firm. They're very much for real. Very much for real. Now, I noticed who just got hurt? Mitchell, Garland. One of them got hurt. Sprained an ankle lately, so they have a worry now. One of those guards got hurt. Yes, I forget which one, but they need them both because they're good for 50 to 60 points a night. Yeah.
Jeff, do you have any other thoughts? I mean, as far as the Celtics going into the playoffs, other than Cleveland, do you have any other concerns? And Brown's health?
No,
I don't.
That would be it. I mean, to me, it's Cleveland. I don't think the Knicks are ready to beat them if they're healthy-ish. So I think you got to. But again, it's hard. I mean, I don't know how much money's at stake here for Jaylen Brown, but I understand it if you're him. That he wants to play, but isn't it more important to win another title? Maybe. I mean, again, for some of these guys, I think they want it all, which you can't blame them.
Right.
First of all, the money thing. I mean, come on, Jaylen, your contract is sufficient to take care of.
Oh, you're fine.
At least one Browns, down the road. That's for sure. That shouldn't be a remote factor in his mind. If he wants the honor of being a third team on his resume or second, it's fine. that's different. Well, I just want to say something about what we're watching here, and I keep preaching this. I'm going to keep preaching it for people. Enjoy the moment. We don't know what's going to happen. Weird things can happen in the playoffs. It's not about winning championships. It's about the basketball that you're privileged to be watching. The team is giving you. The two big baskets in the Knicks game were provided for your pleasure by a 6'10" guy with tremendous all-around ball handling skills who stepped back and hit a routine like 28-footer swish to put the game in overtime with no time left. And then what if someone had told Tom Thibodeau 10 years ago or 15 years ago, so let's say when he was the Celtic assistant on the 08 championship team, that he would lose a game in New York as a coach to a 7'3" Latvian who calmly hit a 30-footer for the seventh three-pointer of his game, that the game would change that much in the ensuing 17 years. I think he wouldn't have, 18 years, he wouldn't have believed you. Now, that's where we are. So let's appreciate these guys while we
By
have
the way,
them.
Donovan Mitchell has the ankle issue. They have Garland listed with a toe, but I mean, I think that's fine. All right, guys. Mike Malone. Jeff, any thoughts on his firing in Denver?
I mean, shocking. Obviously, they won the NBA championship just a couple of years ago. I don't have any great insight.
But the same thing happened in Milwaukee, right? When they fired Budenholzer?
Yeah. And this one, it just sounded like, if you listen to Josh Kroenke talk, the Nuggets owner, it sounded like they were going to make the move at the end of the year anyway.
Right.
And they had played so poorly over the last 10, 15 games or so that he just said, you know what? We're going to make it anyway. Let's clean house. Let's get rid of Calvin Booth. People forget the guy who built this roster was Tim Connolly, who left for Minnesota. So Calvin Booth took over for him, was elevated, and it just sounds like there was a lot of friction here between Booth and Malone. And my guess is they felt like it had just run its course with Malone. I was surprised they wouldn't have just got rid of Booth if that was the issue, right? Like, get rid of Booth and get the right guy in. It's funny, the assistant GM there is a guy named Tommy Balcetis. Tommy Balcetis played. I feel like he's a Lithuanian who came over when he was a kid. He played at Harvard, and when he was a kid, he played at one of the New England prep schools. And I remember seeing him when he came over with a kid named Marty Posius, and they Posius went to Duke. But I've known him for a while. I don't know if he's going to take over or not. Well, I assume they're going to clean house of everything here. But yeah, Michael Malone, listen, again, an old school coach, right? And I got to figure they obviously talked to Jokic before they did this, and he was on board to some extent. And, David Adelman takes over in the interim. We'll see what can happen there. But the priority is making sure the Joker's happy here.
Well, it's unusual what's happened, A, with Memphis, and B, with Malone this late in the season. We've never seen anything like it. So I just wonder, there's some extra thing going on or went on that because it still is bizarre timing for sure. But they aren't playing well. I think they've lost, 4 in a row at this moment, and they're not playing well. Now, because all their problems started last year, it seemed to me, when Murray got hurt and they couldn't, he wasn't really available for any usefulness to them in the playoffs last year. They haven't had a good year by the standards that they set 2 years ago. Obviously, we know that. But meanwhile, Jokic is putting up one of the great years in history. So statistically, right? So yeah, it's surprising. It's stunning, but I'm just suspicious there's something else we don't know. I don't know.
And Luka tonight, going back to Dallas, we understand he was in tears at his homecoming. He's got 38 as we speak in the fourth quarter, as it's a close game with Dallas and the Lakers.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's interesting. He's for real. He's emotional. Of course, he got himself thrown out there against OKC. He's a whiner on referees. We know that. And,
who isn't?
But yeah, but interesting. Yeah, that's that if they pull it out, there's going to be a lot of flack in Dallas over the whole thing. But well, good for him. He's when I say we know how good he is.
How do you feel about the Lakers, Jeff? I don't know if you've had a chance to catch them at all.
I saw the first half tonight. I mean, again, the part that blew me away tonight was Luka going back to Dallas and him balling. I mean, they played the tribute video, and just watching him and how emotional he got. It was kind of cool to see, because you don't know these days with these kids how much it means to them, right? But you could tell how much the city of Dallas, where he grew up in, where he prospered into an elite player in the NBA. I kind of enjoyed seeing it in a way, how hard it was for him and how emotional it was for him to go back to Dallas. Kind of cool to see. But, listen, I just don't think there's a lot of great teams. So, again, you've got Cleveland and Boston, certainly in the East, that look like they're probably at a little bit different level, and Oklahoma City in the West. But I don't know. I feel like somebody can get hot here and get to the Western Conference Finals, and it wouldn't surprise me at all.
You got that tremendous bunch up after OKC. Tremendous bunch up there. Includes both the Lakers and the Warriors. Includes Memphis. Includes on and on it goes. And it's going to go down to the last weekend, the last day maybe. The final settle, and we might get. It looks like we're heading for tiebreakers to get and see who goes to the play-in and who doesn't. And I know they're very competitive, that's for sure. But you're right, it's not exactly the ultra level for sure. And then the East,
what are there? 5 games. I'm looking at it now. There's 5 games separating. No, how about this? There's 8 games separating 3 and no, I'm sorry. There's 2 games separating 3 and 8. That's how close it is.
Right.
And the Rockets are 2.
Right.
The Rockets are 2 are no better than a bunch of these other teams that are from 3 to 8. So anybody could come out of there to play Oklahoma City and nobody would be surprised. Anybody.
Guys, a been a pleasure. It's great to have the band back together. Safe travels. Jeff, continued success on your vagabond way. And may the transfer portal be kind to you. All right, Bob, any closing thoughts?
No, not necessarily. Just the people, I'm just reminding them, I'm preaching. I'm sorry, I'm getting repetitive. But enjoy this team, please. And don't put all the eggs in winning the championship basket in your mind. Enjoy the team. They've given you folks a wonderful run here down the stretch.
Could be a lot worse. Could have been about 3-4 years ago what we were talking about them, right?
Yeah,
right.
And so it's not. It can't always just be. Only one team can win. All right, so just enjoy the ride. Okay.
Well, I think one thing about Celtic City that it's taught us, and we will get into that later on next time, is that we have a tendency to build up the past, and even the great teams of the '80s had their issues. So, like we always sit there, we say, "Well, it's not like the Bird days," and you go, "Well, the Bird days had their problems too, guys." All right, gents, we'll see you later. Brought to you by Prizepicks, the exclusive daily fantasy part of the CLNS Media Network. Pick more, pick less with Prizepicks.